Natalie Brooks knew something was wrong the moment the private elevator opened onto the 47th floor of Sterling Global Tower. The executive hallway was unusually silent. Assistants who normally greeted her with polite smiles lowered their eyes. A young analyst holding an iPad suddenly turned toward the window, pretending to study the Manhattan skyline. Even the receptionist looked frightened when Natalie approached Adrian's office. "Mrs. Sterling," she whispered. "Mr. Sterling is in a private meeting." Natalie forced a small smile. "I only need 1 minute." In her hands was a black Mont Blanc gift box. Inside rested the fountain pen Adrian had admired during a trip down Fifth Avenue. It was their 9th wedding anniversary, though he had apparently forgotten. Natalie had spent the morning caring for her mother, Eleanor, who was recovering from another heart procedure. She had then crossed Manhattan in heavy rain because she still believed a thoughtful surprise might save the growing distance in her marriage. Before the receptionist could stop her, the doors opened. Adrian Sterling stepped out of his private lounge. His white dress shirt was unbuttoned at the collar. His dark hair, usually perfect, was slightly disordered. Behind him came Chloe Whitman, his 29-year-old executive secretary, wearing Adrian's charcoal suit jacket over her cream silk blouse. Chloe's lipstick was smudged. She laughed softly as she reached up and straightened Adrian's tie. Then she saw Natalie. The smile on Chloe's face disappeared for less than a second. After that, something colder replaced it. Satisfaction. Adrian froze. "Natalie." She looked at him, then at Chloe, then at the half-open door behind them. Through the gap, she could see 2 champagne glasses on the table and a pair of women's heels beside the leather couch. Several employees had stopped working. Everyone was watching. Natalie's fingers tightened around the gift box until its sharp corner pressed painfully into her palm. She wanted to scream. She wanted Adrian to rush toward her, explain everything, and make the scene disappear. Instead, he glanced at the employees. His first concern was not her pain. It was his reputation. "This isn't what it looks like," he said quietly. Chloe pulled his jacket closer around her body. "Mrs. Sterling, we were discussing confidential business. Adrian was helping me after I spilled coffee on my blazer." Adrian did not correct her for using his first name. Natalie felt something break inside her, but no tears came. She had cried too many nights alone in their Park Avenue penthouse while Adrian claimed he was trapped in board meetings. She had defended him to her sick mother, ignored hotel receipts, and believed every late-night message was about work. Now the truth stood before her wearing his jacket. Natalie placed the Mont Blanc box on the receptionist's desk. "Happy anniversary," she said. Adrian's face changed. He looked at the date on his Rolex as if the watch had betrayed him. "Natalie, wait." She slowly removed her wedding ring. It was a simple platinum band, not the large Tiffany diamond Adrian had later bought for public events. This was the ring they had chosen when they had almost nothing. She set it beside the unopened gift. "I hope she gives you everything I no longer can." For the first time, Adrian looked afraid. He reached for her, but Natalie stepped back. The elevator doors opened behind her. She entered without another word. Adrian called her name as the doors closed, but she never looked up. By the time he reached their penthouse that evening, her clothes were gone. Her iPhone rested on the kitchen counter. Her credit cards had been cut in half. On the bed lay a signed letter giving him no address and no explanation. Adrian called her mother, her lawyer, every hospital, and every hotel in New York. No one knew where Natalie had gone. At midnight, security delivered footage from the building lobby. Natalie had walked into the rain carrying one suitcase. A black Mercedes had stopped beside her, but the license plate was hidden. She entered the car and vanished. What Adrian did not know was that Natalie had discovered something far more dangerous than his apparent betrayal, and someone inside his company had already ordered that she never return. Before we go any further, I would like to thank you personally for choosing to spend part of your day with us. There are countless things you could be doing right now, yet you are here, listening to this story. We never take that for granted. Because our channel is new, we are still learning how to serve you better. If there is something you would like us to improve, please tell us in the comments. Your honest guidance is always welcome. And if you already feel at home here, please consider subscribing and leaving a like. It may take only a second for you, but it gives us the encouragement to create the next story with even greater care. Thank you, truly. Now, let us continue. 9 years earlier, Natalie Brooks had not known Adrian Sterling as the powerful CEO whose name could silence an entire boardroom. Back then, He was simply Adrian, a determined man with 2 worn suits, an old laptop, and a dream no bank wanted to finance. They met in a small Boston coffee shop during a winter storm. Natalie was 25 and working long hours as a corporate risk analyst. Adrian sat at the table beside her, arguing with a lender on the phone. When the call ended, he stared at a folder filled with rejection letters. Natalie should have ignored him. Instead, she asked, "What are you trying to build?" Adrian looked surprised. "A logistics company. With no money? With a plan." That answer made her smile. Over the next several months, Natalie helped him study contracts, identify financial risks, and rewrite his business proposal. She worked at her office during the day and reviewed shipping reports with him at night. They ate cheap takeout on the floor of his tiny apartment because he did not own a dining table. When Adrian finally received his first investment, he lifted Natalie into his arms and promised that one day she would never have to worry about money again. She did not care about the money. She only cared that he had trusted her with his dream. They married in a small courthouse ceremony. Natalie wore a simple cream dress. Adrian could not afford a photographer, so a stranger waiting outside took their only wedding picture with Natalie's phone. For years, they were happy. Sterling Logistics grew quickly. Adrian traveled across the country, negotiated difficult contracts, and built a reputation for being fearless. Natalie remained beside him, quietly preventing mistakes that could have destroyed the company. She discovered fraudulent invoices from a supplier in Chicago. She warned Adrian about a dangerous acquisition in Miami. She found a legal weakness in a contract that saved the company nearly $12 million. But when journalists asked Adrian who had helped him succeed, Natalie stood behind the cameras and let him receive the credit. Then Eleanor Brooks suffered her first heart attack. Natalie reduced her working hours to care for her mother. At the same time, Adrian asked her to manage their home and attend charity events as his wife. He promised the change would be temporary. It was not. Months became years. Natalie's professional licenses expired. Her former colleagues stopped calling. At business dinners, people referred to her as Adrian Sterling's beautiful wife, as though she had never built anything herself. Adrian always said he appreciated her sacrifices, but appreciation slowly became expectation. He stopped asking about her day. He canceled dinners without warning. He bought expensive jewelry instead of offering an apology. When Natalie tried to discuss returning to work, he said the company needed her in a different role. "What role is that?" she once asked. Adrian kissed her forehead. "Keeping everything together." Natalie believed that was love. Now, sitting in the back seat of the black Mercedes as rain covered the windows, she wondered whether love had simply made her useful. Benjamin Hayes, her old college friend and attorney, drove without speaking. He had helped her pack one suitcase and leave the penthouse before Adrian returned. "You can still change your mind," Benjamin said. "No." "Natalie, once we do this, Sterling's security team will begin searching." "I know." He glanced at her through the mirror. "Did you tell Adrian what you found?" Natalie pressed one hand against the envelope hidden beneath her coat. Inside were financial records showing that someone at Sterling Global had moved millions of dollars through companies that did not exist. Adrian's electronic signature appeared on every document. "No," she answered, "because I don't know whether he signed them." "And if he did?" Natalie looked out at the city she was leaving behind. "Then the man I married disappeared long before I did." Benjamin drove toward a private medical center outside New York. Natalie had an appointment there under a different name. For 3 weeks, she had hidden the weakness in her hands, the sudden dizziness, and the pain that woke her at night. She had believed stress was causing it. The specialist believed otherwise. At the hospital entrance, Benjamin handed her a new phone and a plane ticket to Seattle. "Your appointment is in 20 minutes, he said. "After that, we leave." Natalie stepped out of the car, holding the envelope against her chest. She did not notice the silver sedan parked across the street. Inside it, a man raised his phone and took her photograph. Seconds later, he sent the image to an unknown number with 4 words. "She has the evidence." The private medical center was quiet enough for Natalie to hear the rain striking the windows. She sat across from Dr. Samuel Pierce with both hands folded in her lap, hiding the slight tremor in her fingers. Benjamin waited outside because Natalie had insisted on hearing the results alone. Dr. Pierce opened a file but did not speak immediately. Natalie had spent years reading people in corporate meetings. She recognized hesitation, fear, and carefully controlled sympathy. Please don't soften it, she said. Just tell me. The doctor removed his glasses. Your tests show an autoimmune disorder affecting your nervous system. It is treatable, but your condition is progressing faster than we expected. Natalie stared at him. Am I dying? Not today. Probably not soon, if treatment works. But you may experience weakness, memory problems, loss of balance, and periods when you cannot care for yourself. She thought about Adrian. For 9 years, she had protected him from every difficult truth. She had handled her mother's medical emergencies alone. She had hidden her fear when Sterling Global nearly collapsed. She had smiled at galas while strangers praised a marriage that had become painfully empty. Now she imagined Adrian beside Chloe, wearing that guilty expression. A strange calm settled over her. How long will treatment take? Months. Possibly years. And if I refuse? Dr. Pierce's voice became firm. Then you could lose your independence. Natalie looked down at her wedding ring finger. The pale mark remained even though the ring was gone. She had planned to disappear only long enough to investigate the stolen money. Now disappearing felt necessary for another reason. She refused to become someone Adrian cared for out of guilt after choosing another woman. Before leaving, Dr. Pierce gave her medication and a sealed report. Benjamin stood when she entered the hallway. What did he say? Natalie placed the report inside her purse. That I need treatment. How serious? Serious enough that we have to leave tonight. Benjamin searched her face. You're not telling me everything. I will. Just not here. They used a service elevator to reach the underground garage. Benjamin walked several steps ahead, checking each corner. Natalie had known him since college, but she had never seen him this alert. At the car, he stopped suddenly. One of the rear tires had been slashed. Get back inside, he ordered. A black SUV turned into the garage. Its headlights flashed across them. Benjamin grabbed Natalie's arm and pulled her behind a concrete pillar. The SUV slowed near their car, then continued toward the exit without stopping. Natalie struggled to breathe. Was that Adrian's security team? No, Benjamin said. His people would approach us directly. He called for another vehicle, then examined the damaged tire. A small white envelope had been pushed beneath the windshield wiper. Inside was a photograph of Eleanor leaving her cardiologist's office that morning. On the back, someone had written, "Return the files or your mother pays." Natalie's knees nearly gave way. They know about Mom. Benjamin took the photograph. We need police protection. No police. Natalie, the documents carry Adrian's signature. If we go to the police before we understand what happened, he could be arrested. Thousands of employees could lose their jobs. He may have betrayed you. That does not mean I will destroy innocent families. Benjamin stared at her with a mixture of frustration and respect. A gray sedan arrived 10 minutes later. They left through a service exit and drove toward a small private airport in New Jersey. Natalie called her mother from the new phone. She wanted to warn Eleanor, but before she could speak, her mother said something that made her blood run cold. Sweetheart, Adrian was here. Natalie sat upright. At your house? Yes. He looked terrified. He asked where you were. Did you tell him anything? No, but he left a message for you. Natalie closed her eyes. What message? Eleanor lowered her voice. He said Chloe was never his lover, and the night before you disappeared, someone tried to kill him. Natalie looked at Benjamin, unable to speak. At that exact moment, his phone displayed a security alert from Sterling Global. Adrian's private office had been broken into. The hidden financial records were gone, and surveillance footage showed the person entering with Natalie's access card. Someone was framing her. By sunrise, every major news network would describe Natalie Brooks as a thief who had stolen millions from her own husband. But the most shocking part was still hidden inside the medical report she carried. The doctor had discovered that Natalie's illness was not natural. Someone had been poisoning her for months. By 7 the next morning, Natalie's face was on every television screen in the airport lounge. Sterling CEO's wife accused of corporate theft. The headline appeared beneath a photograph taken at a charity gala 3 years earlier. Natalie looked elegant, calm, and wealthy. The image made her seem like a woman who had everything and still wanted more. A reporter stood outside Sterling Global Tower. Sources claim Natalie Brooks used her access card to enter Adrian Sterling's private office and remove confidential financial records. Investigators are also examining transfers worth nearly $6 million. Natalie stared at the screen. I never transferred anything. Benjamin shut off the television. Facts won't matter this morning. Whoever planned this moved quickly. Her phone began vibrating. Unknown numbers. Journalists. Former colleagues. People who had ignored her for years were suddenly demanding answers. Then a message arrived from Eleanor. Natalie, please call me. Reporters are outside the house. Natalie stood so quickly that dizziness struck her. Benjamin caught her arm before she fell. We have to go back. No, he said. That is exactly what they want. My mother is alone. I arranged private security. She is safe. Natalie looked toward the airport windows. Their chartered plane waited on the runway, prepared to take them to Seattle. Leaving now would make her look guilty. Staying could place Eleanor in greater danger. Across Manhattan, Adrian stood inside his office while detectives photographed the broken cabinets. Chloe remained near the door, pale and silent. Adrian held Natalie's access record in one hand. It says she entered at 11:43 p.m. She was gone by then, Chloe said carefully. Adrian turned toward her. How do you know? Chloe hesitated. Everyone knew she left you. That was not my question. For the first time, suspicion entered his voice. Before Chloe could answer, Richard Sterling walked in. Adrian's uncle had served as vice chairman for 12 years. He was polished, respected, and trusted by every major investor. This is a disaster, Richard said. The board wants an emergency meeting. My wife did not steal from me. Richard placed a hand on Adrian's shoulder. You are thinking like a husband. Start thinking like a CEO. Adrian stepped away. She left her phone and credit cards. She did not take money. She took documents that could damage this company or expose someone inside it. Richard's expression hardened for only a moment. Then he smiled. Be careful, Adrian. Grief can make intelligent men paranoid. At the airport, Benjamin received a call from one of his investigators. He moved several feet away, but Natalie heard enough. Say that again. His face changed. When he ended the call, Natalie asked, What happened? The $6 million was transferred into an account under your maiden name. I never opened that account. I know. But it was created 8 months ago using your social security number. Natalie felt the room tilt again. 8 months. That was when her unexplained headaches had started. That was also when Chloe began working directly for Adrian. Benjamin lowered his voice. There's more. The account was accessed from your mother's home. Natalia stared at him. That's impossible. Someone wants the police to believe Eleanor helped you. Natalie's fear turned into anger. They were not only destroying her, they were building a case against the one person she loved most. She pulled the medical report from her purse and finally opened it. Dr. Pierce had attached a laboratory analysis. The substance found in her blood was a rare industrial compound used in certain imported cleaning products. Benjamin read the page. This could cause the weakness and memory problems? Yes. Who had access to your food, medication, and home? Natalie thought about the penthouse staff, the chef, the housekeeper, Adrian. Then she remembered something small. Every evening, Chloe sent a silver thermos to the penthouse with Adrian's assistant. She claimed it contained a special herbal tea recommended by a wellness consultant. Adrian never drank it. He always handed it to Natalie. Benjamin saw the realization in her eyes. Who gave you the tea? Natalie whispered the name. At that moment, every screen in the lounge changed to breaking news. Police had arrived at Eleanor Brooks's home. A reporter announced that officers had discovered stolen Sterling Global documents hidden in her basement. Natalie ran toward the exit, but Benjamin blocked her path. If you go there, they will arrest you. She needs me. And if they take you too, no one will be left to prove the truth. Natalie looked at the waiting plane, then at her mother's terrified face on television. For the first time in her life, she understood that protecting someone might require walking away from them. She boarded the plane with tears in her eyes. As it rose above New York, Adrian received a private security report. The access card used in the theft had not been Natalie's original card. It was a duplicate authorized by someone with executive-level clearance. Only 3 people had that power: Adrian, Richard, and Chloe. Then Adrian opened the final page and saw the authorization signature his own, dated on a night when he had been unconscious in the hospital. Adrian read the security report 3 times. His signature appeared beneath the authorization request for Natalie's duplicate access card. The date was 8 months earlier. During the week, he had been hospitalized after his car lost control on a private road outside Manhattan. He remembered waking with a concussion. He remembered Richard sitting beside his bed. He remembered Chloe bringing documents for him to sign, but he did not remember approving an access card. Who prepared this request? Adrian asked. The head of security, Marcus Cole, shifted uncomfortably. Chloe Whitman submitted it. Adrian looked through the glass wall of his office. Chloe sat at her desk, typing as though nothing had changed. Bring her in. Chloe entered, carrying her tablet. Her face showed concern, but Adrian noticed how carefully she controlled her breathing. Did you create a duplicate card for Natalie? Chloe glanced at the report. You approved it. I was unconscious. You were awake when you signed the documents. Why did Natalie need another card? Chloe hesitated. She said she had lost hers. My wife never contacted you directly. She called from the penthouse. Adrian leaned forward. Show me the call record. For the first time, Chloe's confidence weakened. I may not still have it. You keep records of every call. It was 8 months ago. Adrian stared at her until she lowered her eyes. Before he could continue, Richard entered without knocking. The board is waiting, he said. We have to release a statement condemning Natalie's actions. Adrian stood. No statement will be released. Richard's expression tightened. The evidence is overwhelming. The evidence is manufactured. Chloe looked at Richard. It lasted only a second, but Adrian saw it. Fear passed between them. He turned to Marcus. Lock this floor. No one leaves. Richard laughed coldly. You cannot imprison your own executives. I can secure my company during an active investigation. Adrian ordered Marcus to collect Chloe's phone, laptop, and access badge. Chloe stepped backward. You cannot do this to me. I trusted you, Adrian said. That was my mistake. Her eyes filled with tears. I was trying to protect you from Natalie. She was planning to destroy you. Adrian's voice became dangerously quiet. How would you know what Natalie was planning? Chloe said nothing. Across the country, Natalie landed at a private airfield outside Seattle. Her legs were weak when she stepped onto the wet pavement. Benjamin supported her while an unfamiliar man waited beside a dark blue SUV. He was tall, simply dressed, and calm. Natalie, this is Ethan Caldwell, Benjamin said. He runs the medical foundation that arranged your treatment. Ethan offered his hand but did not ask questions. You'll be safe at our clinic, he said. Natalie looked at the quiet airfield. My mother is not safe. We are working on that. I cannot hide while she is arrested for something I did not do. Ethan met her eyes. Then do not think of this as hiding. Think of it as staying alive long enough to fight back. At the clinic, doctors began immediate treatment. Natalie's blood showed repeated exposure to the industrial toxin. The poison had entered her body in small doses, likely through a drink taken daily. Benjamin placed a photograph of Chloe's silver thermos on the table. We need one of these tested. Natalie remembered that Eleanor had kept the last thermos Natalie brought to her house. The same house police were now searching. She called her mother's attorney. He answered from outside the police station. Eleanor has not been charged yet, he said, but investigators found more than documents in her basement. Natalie's heart tightened. What did they find? A locked metal case containing cash, forged passports, and a bottle of industrial solvent. The poison. Someone had placed the evidence inside her mother's home. Natalie ended the call and looked at Benjamin. They are preparing to blame Mom for poisoning me. Ethan walked toward them, holding a sealed envelope delivered to the clinic minutes earlier. There was no return address. Inside was a photograph of Natalie sleeping in her hospital room. Written across the bottom were 6 words. You cannot hide from your family. Natalie turned the photograph over. On the back was a date, a hospital room number, and a message that changed everything. Ask Adrian, who was driving the night he almost died. Natalie read the message again. Ask Adrian, who was driving the night he almost died. The room number written beneath it belonged to Street Matthews Hospital in New York, where Adrian had been treated after his crash 8 months earlier. Benjamin opened his laptop. The official report says Adrian was driving alone. He told me the same thing, Natalie said. Ethan studied the photograph of Natalie sleeping. Whoever sent this entered a secure clinic. We need to move you. No, Natalie replied. Running is helping them control the story. I need answers. Benjamin contacted a retired detective who had reviewed Adrian's accident. 30 minutes later, the man sent them photographs that had never appeared in the insurance report. The driver's airbag contained no blood. The passenger side airbag did. Natalie stared at the image. Adrian was not driving. Benjamin nodded. Someone moved him before the police arrived. In Manhattan, Adrian stood across from Chloe inside the locked executive conference room. Richard had been separated from her, but both refused to answer questions. Adrian placed the accident photographs on the table. Who drove my car that night? Chloe's face lost color. I don't know. You were at the hospital before my family arrived. You called me. I was unconscious. Chloe looked toward the security camera in the ceiling. Adrian noticed. Who are you afraid of? She said nothing. He leaned closer. Was it Richard? Chloe's eyes filled with tears, but this time they did not look staged. If I talk, he will destroy me. Adrian's anger paused. Who? Before she could answer, the fire alarm sounded. Red lights flashed across the room. The doors unlocked automatically. Marcus entered with 2 guards, ordering everyone toward the emergency stairs. Chloe pushed past them. Adrian grabbed her wrist. You are not leaving. A gunshot shattered the glass wall. Employees screamed. Marcus pulled Adrian down while the guards rushed toward the hallway. Chloe tore free and disappeared into the smoke pouring from the ventilation system. Someone had created the evacuation to remove her. Minutes later, security found Richard unconscious in his office. His head was bleeding, and his computer had been wiped clean. Chloe was gone. So was the company's encrypted financial server. In Seattle, Benjamin received Adrian's call. Natalie refused to answer at first. Then Adrian sent one sentence. I know you were poisoned. Her hands began to shake. She took the phone. How do you know? I found purchase records for the chemical in Chloe's office. That proves nothing. Evidence was planted in my mother's house too. Adrian was silent. Natalie, I did not sleep with Chloe. You allowed her to humiliate me. I know. You watched me leave. I know. And now my mother is being treated like a criminal because of your company. His voice broke. I am trying to fix it. You cannot fix 9 years by saying you regret one morning. Adrian took a slow breath. The night of the crash I was not driving, Richard was. Natalie looked at Benjamin. Why would your uncle lie? Because we were arguing. I had discovered money missing from a foreign account. Richard drove me to meet the auditor who found it. Before we arrived, another vehicle forced us off the road. What happened after the crash? I remember Richard pulling me from the passenger seat. Then Chloe appeared. Natalie's blood ran cold. Why was Chloe there? I don't know. But the auditor disappeared the same night. Benjamin began searching the missing auditor's name. Adrian continued. There is something else. Hospital records show someone entered my room while I was unconscious and used my hand to sign documents. The duplicate access card. Yes. And several offshore transfers. Natalie closed her eyes. They had both been framed by the same people. But that did not erase what Adrian had done to her. I will send you everything I have, he said. You do not have to trust me. I don't. I understand. Before the call ended, Benjamin found the missing auditor's file. His name was Daniel Mercer. According to federal records, Daniel had died in a boating accident 6 months earlier, but Ethan stared at the photograph and slowly stood. I know this man. Natalie turned toward him. Ethan's face had gone pale. He did not die in a boating accident, he said. He has been living under another name at my foundation. Then the clinic's power failed, and from the dark hallway came the sound of someone unlocking Daniel Mercer's protected room. Emergency lights flickered on inside the clinic. Ethan moved first. Stay behind me. He grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall and entered the hallway. Benjamin pulled Natalie toward the nurse's station, while 2 security officers rushed upstairs. A door slammed near Daniel Mercer's room. Then came the sound of breaking glass. Ethan reached the room and found the window open. Cold rain swept across the floor. Daniel was gone, but drops of blood led toward the service staircase. He was taken, Benjamin said. No, Ethan replied, examining the broken lock. He escaped. Natalie followed the blood trail despite the weakness in her legs. At the bottom of the stairs, they found Daniel hiding inside a supply closet, holding a metal tray like a weapon. He was thin, gray-haired, and terrified. When he saw Natalie, his expression changed. You're Adrian Sterling's wife. I was. Daniel lowered the tray. They told me you were part of it. Who told you? Richard Sterling. Natalie's breath caught. Daniel explained that he had audited Sterling Global's overseas accounts. He discovered shell companies moving millions through fake shipping contracts. Richard controlled the accounts, but the transfers carried Adrian's electronic approval. I warned Adrian, Daniel said. He agreed to meet me secretly. Richard insisted on driving him. The crash. Natalie whispered. Daniel nodded. It was not an accident. Richard had arranged for another vehicle to force them off the road. He planned to kill Adrian and claim control of the company. Why did Adrian survive? Richard panicked when another car approached. He pulled Adrian from the wreck and changed the story. Benjamin asked, "How did you escape?" "Chloe found me before Richard's men did." Natalie stared at him. "Chloe saved you?" "She hid me in a motel and arranged transportation to Seattle. Then she warned me never to contact Adrian." Nothing made sense anymore. Chloe had poisoned Natalie, framed her mother, and helped steal the company's records. Yet Chloe had also saved the only witness who could expose Richard. Daniel sat down heavily. She was working for Richard because he owed her debt. But she was also collecting evidence against him. She wanted protection. "Then why did she target me?" Natalie asked. Daniel looked ashamed. "Richard convinced her that Adrian would never trust her while you were beside him. He promised her money and a place on the board if she destroyed your marriage." Natalie remembered Chloe wearing Adrian's jacket, the smudged lipstick, the champagne glass. Every detail had been arranged. Did Adrian know? No. Richard drugged Adrian's drink that morning. Chloe staged the scene while he was confused. The truth relieved nothing. Adrian might not have cheated, but he had allowed Natalie to feel small for years. A staged betrayal could not erase a real marriage filled with neglect. Daniel reached inside his shirt and removed a small flash drive attached to a chain. This contains the original account records, recordings of Richard's instructions, and proof that Chloe purchased the poison. Benjamin took it carefully. "With this, we can clear Natalie and Eleanor." Daniel shook his head. "Not yet. Richard has people inside federal law enforcement. If you submit it through the wrong office, the evidence will disappear." Ethan asked, "Who can we trust?" "Special Agent Rebecca Shaw. She investigated Richard years ago, but the case was closed after her key witness vanished." Daniel gave them a secure number. Before Benjamin could call, Natalie's new phone rang. It was Adrian. She answered. "Richard is missing," he said. "So is Chloe. We found Daniel Mercer." Adrian went silent. "He's alive?" "Yes. And he has evidence." Natalie expected relief, but Adrian's voice became urgent. "Do not send it electronically. Richard's team is monitoring every Sterling server and private network. We are not using your network. You used Benjamin's charter company. Sterling Global owns part of its security provider." Benjamin immediately closed his laptop. Adrian continued. "They know where you are." Outside, several black SUVs turned through the clinic gates. Armed men stepped out. Ethan ordered security to lock every entrance while Daniel handed Natalie the flash drive. "Whatever happens," he said, "do not let Richard take this." The first gunshot struck the front doors. Natalie slipped the drive into her medication bottle and followed Ethan toward an underground treatment wing. As they entered the elevator, Daniel suddenly remained behind. "What are you doing?" Natalie cried. "Buying you time." The doors began closing. Daniel looked directly at her. "Tell Adrian the person who betrayed him was never Chloe." Natalie reached toward him. "Who was it?" Daniel's final answer came just before the doors sealed. It was the man Adrian trusted enough to make head of security, Marcus Cole. The elevator carried Natalie, Ethan, and Benjamin beneath the clinic, while gunfire echoed above them. Natalie held the medication bottle tightly. The flash drive inside it contained enough evidence to destroy Richard Sterling, clear her mother's name, and expose the people who had poisoned her. But Daniel Mercer was still upstairs. "We cannot leave him," Natalie said. Ethan pressed the emergency stop button after the elevator reached the underground treatment wing. "Daniel made his choice so you could survive. He should not have to die for me." "He is not dying for you," Benjamin said. "He is protecting the truth." A nurse led them through a restricted corridor toward an ambulance tunnel. The clinic had been designed for wealthy patients who required private entrances, but tonight the passage became their only escape route. Natalie's phone rang. "Adrian," she answered immediately. "Marcus betrayed you." There was silence on the other end. Then Adrian said, "That is impossible." Daniel saw the records. "Marcus has been working with Richard. I have known Marcus for 15 years. And you trusted Chloe." Adrian did not respond. Natalie regretted the cruelty in her voice, but there was no time to comfort him. "Marcus controls your security systems," she continued. "He knew my schedule, my mother's address, and every entrance to your company." Adrian began typing on a computer. "Marcus also approved the team that investigated my crash. Then he erased anything Richard wanted hidden." A warning alarm sounded in the tunnel. The metal doors behind them began opening. "They found us," Ethan said. A white ambulance waited 20 yards away. Benjamin ran toward it while Ethan stayed beside Natalie. Her legs suddenly weakened, and she nearly fell. The poison had damaged her nervous system more than she wanted to admit. "I can walk," she insisted. Ethan placed one arm around her waist. "You do not have to prove anything right now." They reached the ambulance as armed men entered the far end of the tunnel. Benjamin started the engine. Bullets struck the rear doors while Ethan pulled Natalie inside. The ambulance accelerated through the rain and crashed through the outer security gate. Natalie looked back. One black SUV followed them. Benjamin drove toward downtown Seattle, taking narrow streets to lose it. Ethan opened Natalie's medical bag and checked her pulse. "You need your treatment. I need my mother free. And you will not help her if your body shuts down." Natalie swallowed her medication while Adrian remained on the phone. "I found Marcus's private access logs," he said. "He entered my penthouse 32 times during the last year." Natalie's stomach turned. The tea. He could have delivered it without appearing on the household records. "Why would Marcus poison me?" Adrian's voice became heavy. "Because you were reviewing the charity accounts. You must have noticed money missing." Natalie remembered a fundraiser 8 months earlier. The Brooks Heart Initiative had received $5 million from Sterling Global, but only $3 million reached the hospital. She had questioned Chloe. The headaches began 1 week later. The pursuing SUV struck the ambulance from behind. Benjamin fought to keep control. Ethan opened a hidden compartment and removed a satellite phone. "We need federal protection now." Natalie gave him Agent Rebecca Shaw's secure number. Rebecca answered after one ring. "Identify yourself." "Natalie Brooks." "Daniel Mercer sent us." The agent became silent. "Where is Daniel?" "At the clinic. Armed men attacked us." "Do you have his evidence?" Natalie looked at the medication bottle. "Yes." "Do not go to the police. Richard has paid officers in 3 states. I am sending a federal team to Harbor Point Pier. Reach it in 12 minutes. Benjamin turned sharply toward the waterfront. The SUV followed. In Manhattan, Adrian entered the security control room. Marcus stood alone before a wall of monitors. Adrian locked the door behind him. Marcus slowly turned. "You should have released the statement against your wife," he said. "You framed her. I protected the company. You poisoned her." Marcus smiled. "That was never supposed to kill her. Richard only wanted her confused enough to sign the foundation papers." Adrian stepped closer. "Where is Chloe?" "Running, just like your wife." Adrian saw a live screen showing Natalie's ambulance. Marcus had been tracking her through Adrian's phone call. Adrian disconnected immediately, but it was too late. At Harbor Point Pier, federal vehicles appeared ahead. Benjamin drove toward them while the pursuing SUV slowed. Natalie finally breathed again. Then the federal agents raised their weapons. Not at the SUV, at the ambulance. Ethan looked at the insignia on their jackets and understood first. These are not Rebecca's agents. The ambulance stopped. A man approached Natalie's door holding official credentials. Behind him stood Chloe Whitman, alive and smiling. Chloe lifted a phone to Natalie's ear, and Richard Sterling's voice said, "Give me the flash drive, or your mother will not survive the night." Natalie stared at Chloe through the ambulance window. For months, she had imagined confronting the woman who had poisoned her, destroyed her reputation, and helped turn her mother into a suspect. But standing there now, Natalie felt no fear, only clarity. Chloe opened the ambulance door. "Give me the flash drive." Natalie kept the medication bottle hidden beneath her coat. "Let my mother go first." Chloe's smile disappeared. "You are not in a position to negotiate." Ethan stepped between them. "She is a patient." One of the fake federal agents pointed a gun at his chest. Natalie grabbed Ethan's arm. "No." Richard's voice came through Chloe's phone. "You have 5 minutes, Natalie. After that, Eleanor will suffer a heart attack no doctor can explain." Natalie closed her eyes. The words were meant to break her. Instead, they confirmed something important. Richard did not have the flash drive. And if he was still threatening her, he did not know where she had hidden it. Natalie slowly removed the medication bottle. Chloe reached for it. Before handing it over, Natalie looked directly at her. "Did Richard promise to erase your debt?" Chloe froze. "Did he promise you Adrian's company too?" "Be quiet. He will never protect you," Natalie continued. "Daniel is alive. Marcus has been exposed. The moment Richard gets this drive, you become the final witness he needs to remove." Fear entered Chloe's eyes. Richard shouted through the phone. "Take it from her." Chloe grabbed the bottle. At that exact moment, police sirens sounded from every direction. The fake agents turned toward the road. Black federal vehicles blocked both exits from the pier. Helicopters appeared above the water, flooding the area with white light. A woman's voice came through loudspeakers. "This is Special Agent Rebecca Shaw. Drop your weapons and place your hands where we can see them." Chloe looked at Natalie. "You called her." "No," Natalie said. "Ethan did." While Chloe had been threatening them, Ethan had activated the satellite phone beneath a blanket and transmitted their location. The fake agents began surrendering. Chloe tried to run. Natalie caught her wrist. For 1 second, the two women stood face to face. "You took my health," Natalie said. "You took my name. You tried to take my mother." Chloe pulled away. "And now you are going to watch me lose everything?" "No," Natalie replied calmly. "You are going to watch the truth take it from you." Rebecca's agents arrested Chloe and recovered the medication bottle. But when they opened it, the flash drive was not inside. Chloe looked confused. Natalie reached into the lining of her coat and removed the real drive. She had switched it before leaving the clinic. By morning, Eleanor was released. The documents found in her basement were proven to have been planted. The stolen money had been traced through accounts controlled by Richard Sterling and Marcus Cole. News networks that had called Natalie a thief now waited outside the federal building for her statement. She walked past them without speaking. 6 months later, Natalie returned to New York. But she was no longer the exhausted woman who had left with one suitcase. Treatment had restored much of her strength. Her hair was shorter, her posture was straight. She wore a white suit, simple diamond earrings, and the calm expression of someone who no longer needed permission to enter any room. Beside her stood Ethan. Across Manhattan, giant screens announced the launch of Caldwell Brooks Capital, a new investment fund created to protect employee pensions and rescue companies damaged by executive fraud. Natalie had used her knowledge, her evidence, and the settlement from Sterling Global to build something of her own. That afternoon, she entered the Sterling boardroom. Every director stood. Adrian remained seated at the far end of the table, looking older than she remembered. Richard sat beside two attorneys, still pretending he could survive the investigation. Natalie placed a folder in front of the board. It contained proof of every stolen dollar, every forged signature, and every payment made to Chloe and Marcus. Richard laughed. "You think this gives you power?" Natalie looked around the room. "No. The people whose jobs you nearly destroyed gave me power." She revealed that Caldwell Brooks Capital had quietly purchased enough company debt to control the emergency vote. Richard's smile vanished. Natalie turned to the board. "I move to remove Richard Sterling as vice chairman and refer all evidence to federal prosecutors." Every hand rose. Federal agents entered the room. Richard was arrested in front of the directors he had controlled for years. As he was led away, Natalie finally faced Adrian. He stood slowly. "I am sorry," he said. Natalie's eyes filled with tears, but her voice remained steady. "I believe you." Hope appeared on his face. Then Ethan entered the room, and Natalie reached for his hand. "But believing your apology does not mean returning to the life that broke me." Adrian lowered his head. Natalie walked away with Ethan, leaving the ring, the company, and her old identity behind. Outside, cameras flashed as reporters called her name. For the first time, Natalie stopped. She turned toward them and prepared to tell the world everything. But before she could speak, Rebecca approached with new evidence proving Richard had not been the person who gave the final order to poison her. Part 9, the trap Natalie set for them. Natalie stared at Chloe from inside the ambulance. The woman who had worn Adrian's jacket, poisoned her tea, framed her mother, and helped destroy her reputation, now stood beside armed men wearing stolen federal uniforms. Chloe held the phone closer. Richard Sterling's voice came through the speaker. "Give me the flash drive, Natalie, or Eleanor will die before sunrise." Natalie felt fear tighten around her chest, but she did not let it control her. "Let me hear my mother's voice." Richard laughed. "You are not negotiating. Then you do not have her." Chloe's eyes shifted. It was a small movement, but Natalie saw it. Richard had lied. Eleanor was in danger, but she was not with him. Natalie slowly removed the medication bottle from her coat. "The drive is inside." Chloe stepped closer. Ethan quietly moved his hand beneath the ambulance blanket. Natalie knew he was reaching for the satellite phone. One of the armed men noticed. "Hands where I can see them." Ethan raised both hands. Natalie looked directly at Chloe. You know Richard will kill you after this. Chloe's face hardened. He needs me. He needed Daniel too. Then he tried to erase him. That is different. No, it is not. You know every payment, every forged document, and every person he bribed. The moment you hand him this evidence, you become his biggest risk. Richard shouted through the phone. Stop listening to her. Natalie almost smiled. His anger proved she was right. Chloe reached for the bottle, but Natalie pulled it back. Tell me where my mother is. Chloe hesitated. Give me the drive. Where is she? For several seconds, only the rain could be heard striking the ambulance roof. Then Chloe whispered, Marcus sent 2 men to her attorney's house. Richard cursed through the phone. Natalie turned toward Benjamin. Call Rebecca. The fake agents raised their weapons. But before anyone could move, bright lights flooded the pier. Federal vehicles blocked both exits. A helicopter appeared above the water. Special Agent Rebecca Shaw's voice exploded from a loudspeaker. Drop your weapons. You are surrounded. Ethan had successfully transmitted their location. The fake agents surrendered one by one. Chloe tried to run toward the dock, but Natalie stepped into her path. You ruined my life, Chloe said bitterly. Natalie stared at her. No, you ruined your own life when you decided another woman's pain was the price of your ambition. Chloe swung at hair. Ethan caught Chloe's arm before the blow landed. Federal agents pulled her away and placed her in handcuffs. Rebecca opened the medication bottle. It was empty. Chloe looked confused. Natalie reached beneath the bandage around her wrist and removed the flash drive. She had hidden it there before leaving the clinic. 20 minutes later, Rebecca confirmed that Eleanor had been found alive at Benjamin's secured townhouse. Marcus's men had been arrested outside before they could enter. For the first time in days, Natalie allowed herself to breathe. 6 months later, she returned to Manhattan. The poison was no longer in her blood, although she still attended physical therapy 3 times a week. Her mother had recovered. Every charge against them had been dismissed. The newspapers that once called Natalie a thief now called her the whistleblower who saved 40,000 jobs. But Natalie had not returned for an apology. She entered Sterling Global's emergency board meeting wearing a white tailored suit. Ethan walked beside her, carrying a folder containing the financial evidence. Adrian stood when she entered. His face showed relief, guilt, and hope. Richard remained seated. You have no authority here, he said. Natalie placed the folder on the table. Caldwell Brooks Capital purchased the company's emergency debt this morning. I now represent the largest group of protected creditors. The directors stared at her. Natalie continued, I am calling for Richard Sterling's immediate removal and a full federal investigation. Richard laughed until the board secretary counted the votes. Every director supported Natalie. Federal agents entered through the main doors. Richard's confidence finally disappeared. As they handcuffed him, he turned toward Adrian. You think she saved you? She came back to take everything. Natalie faced Adrian. I did not come back to save you. I came back because innocent families did not deserve to pay for your mistakes. Adrian lowered his eyes. After Richard was taken away, Adrian approached her. I will spend the rest of my life proving how sorry I am. Natalie looked at the man she had once loved more than herself. I forgive you. Hope appeared on his face. Then she reached for Ethan's hand. But forgiveness is not an invitation to return. Natalie walked toward the door. Before she reached it, Rebecca entered with a sealed report. Her expression was grave. Richard ordered the fraud, Rebecca said. But he was not the person who ordered Natalie's poisoning. That command came from someone inside her own family. Natalie stared at Rebecca. Someone inside my family? Adrian moved closer, but Natalie raised one hand. She did not want protection from him now. She wanted the truth. Rebecca opened the sealed report. The poisoning began 8 months ago. We traced the industrial compound through delivery records, pharmacy purchases, and payments made from a private account. Natalie's voice was barely audible. Whose account? Eleanor Brooks. Natalie shook her head immediately. No. My mother would never hurt me. We know, Rebecca said. The account was opened using her identity, but she did not control it. Benjamin stepped forward. Then who did? Rebecca placed a photograph on the boardroom table. The man in the image was smiling beside Eleanor at a hospital fundraiser. Natalie recognized him. Dr. Pierce? Samuel Pierce had diagnosed her illness. He had warned her that the condition was progressing. He had also been the person who first told her the poisoning was deliberate. Rebecca nodded. Dr. Pierce is your mother's cardiologist and Richard's private medical advisor. Natalie felt sick. He treated my family for years. He also had access to your medical history, your mother's house, and the charity clinic's records. Ethan studied the report. Why would he poison Natalie? Because she discovered money missing from the Brooks Heart Initiative, Rebecca explained. Pierce created false patient programs and transferred donations into offshore accounts. Richard later used those accounts to hide company funds. Natalie remembered the herbal tea. Chloe sent it. Chloe delivered it, Rebecca said. But Pierce prepared the mixture. He told her it was a harmless medication designed to make you tired and confused. Chloe chose not to ask questions. Adrian's jaw tightened. Where is Pierce? Rebecca looked toward the windows. He disappeared this morning. Natalie's phone rang. The number belonged to Eleanor's house. She answered immediately. Mom? A man spoke instead. You always were too intelligent for your own good. Dr. Pierce. Natalie gripped the phone. Where is my mother? Resting comfortably. For now. Rebecca signaled agents to trace the call. Pierce continued. Richard has been arrested. Chloe will talk. Marcus will protect himself. That leaves me carrying everyone's sins. You poisoned me. I gave you weakness, Natalie. Richard wanted you dead. I convinced him that confusion would be more useful. You expect gratitude? I expect the flash drive. The government already has copies. Not the original medical ledger. Daniel kept it separate. It proves every payment I received. Natalie looked at Rebecca. The agent's expression confirmed that Pierce was right. I do not have it, Natalie said. But Ethan does. Everyone turned toward him. Ethan's face remained calm, but Natalie saw surprise in his eyes. Pierce laughed softly. Daniel gave it to Mr. Caldwell before the clinic attack. Bring it to Eleanor's house alone, or your mother's heart medication will become something much more dangerous. The call ended. Adrian reached for his coat. I am coming with you. No, Natalie said. He is using your mother, and he will kill her if he sees security. Ethan stepped beside Natalie. You are not going alone. He specifically asked for me. He also believes I have the ledger. Natalie looked at him. Do you? Ethan reached inside his jacket and removed a narrow black notebook. Daniel gave it to me before he stayed behind. The pages contain names, dates, medical compounds, and payments. At the bottom of several pages was Dr. Pierce's signature. Rebecca prepared a silent response team while Natalie and Ethan drove to Eleanor's home. The street looked peaceful. No broken windows. No visible guards. Inside, Eleanor sat in a chair beside the fireplace. Pierce stood behind her with a syringe pressed against her neck. You brought Ethan, he said. Natalie held up the ledger. You said you wanted this. Pierce smiled. Place it on the table. Natalie obeyed. Ethan moved slightly toward Eleanor. Pierce raised the syringe. One more step, and her heart stops. Natalie's hands trembled, but her voice did not. You will not escape. I do not need to. I only need enough time to destroy the record and blame Richard. He reached for the ledger. At that moment, Eleanor opened her eyes. She struck Pierce's wrist with the metal handle of her cane. The syringe fell. Ethan rushed forward and pulled Eleanor away while Natalie grabbed the ledger. Federal agents broke through the doors. Pierce ran toward the kitchen, but Adrian suddenly appeared from the rear entrance and blocked him. Pierce drew a small gun. A shot exploded. Natalie screamed. Pierce collapsed as Rebecca's agents fired. Adrian remained standing, one hand pressed against his bleeding shoulder. Eleanor was safe. The evidence survived, and Dr. Pierce was arrested alive. Later that night, Natalie sat beside Adrian's hospital bed. You saved my mother, she said. I could not save our marriage. Natalie's eyes filled with tears. No. But tonight, you finally protected someone without asking what it would cost you. Adrian nodded. He understood that her gratitude was not love returning. Across the hall, Ethan waited quietly. Natalie rose and walked toward him. For the first time, she did not look back. But before she reached Ethan, Rebecca arrived with one final document proof that Natalie had legally owned half of Sterling Global from the day the company was created. Part 11. The life she finally chose. Rebecca placed the document on the hospital table. Natalie stared at the signature at the bottom. It was hers. 9 years earlier, when Sterling Logistics had been nothing more than a small office and 2 rented trucks, Adrian had registered Natalie as a 50% founding owner. The agreement had never been canceled. Richard had hidden it. Adrian looked at Natalie from the hospital bed. You built the company with me, he said. Half of it was always yours. Natalie felt no victory at first. She remembered the cold apartment floors, the unpaid bills, the contracts she had corrected after midnight, and the years when people called her only Adrian's wife. The company had survived because of her work. Now the law finally recognized it. 3 months later, a federal judge confirmed Natalie's ownership. She received half of Sterling Global's shares, back payments from years of hidden profits, and full compensation for the damage caused by the conspiracy. Natalie did not keep control of the company. She sold most of her shares to an employee ownership trust, giving thousands of workers a permanent stake in the business they had helped build. She kept enough money to expand Caldwell Brooks Capital and create the Brooks Medical Justice Foundation, which provided legal and medical help to patients harmed by corrupt doctors and corporations. Eleanor became the foundation's first honorary director. The people who had harmed Natalie faced the consequences they had tried to escape. Richard Sterling was convicted of fraud, attempted murder, conspiracy, and witness intimidation. He received a long federal prison sentence and lost every property purchased with stolen money. Marcus Cole cooperated with prosecutors, but his testimony did not erase his crimes. He was sentenced to prison and permanently banned from security work. Dr. Samuel Pierce lost his medical license before receiving a sentence for poisoning Natalie, abusing patient records, and threatening Eleanor. Chloe Whitman admitted that she had staged the scene with Adrian, delivered the poisoned tea, forged records, and helped frame Natalie. Her cooperation reduced her sentence, but it did not save her reputation or career. The apartment, clothes, and jewelry she had purchased with Richard's money were seized. Before Chloe was taken away, she asked Natalie for forgiveness. Natalie looked at her calmly. I hope one day you understand what you did. But my forgiveness is not something you can use to avoid the consequences. Adrian resigned as CEO. He remained wealthy, but money no longer impressed anyone who knew the truth. He spent the following years rebuilding the company's ethics program and supporting families affected by Richard's crimes. He never asked Natalie to return. That was the first promise to her that he truly kept. Ethan stayed beside Natalie during her recovery without demanding a place in her future. He drove her to physical therapy, ate quiet dinners with Eleanor, and listened on the nights when Natalie still woke from nightmares. One evening, Ethan took her to the small Boston coffee shop where she had first met Adrian. The place had changed, but one corner table remained beside the window. Ethan did not kneel immediately. He sat across from her and said, I do not want to rescue you. You already rescued yourself. I only want to build a life where you never have to disappear to feel safe. Then he placed a simple ring on the table. Natalie cried before she smiled. Yes. Their wedding took place in a small church outside Seattle. Eleanor walked Natalie down the aisle. Benjamin stood near the front. Daniel Mercer, now living openly under his real name, attended with federal protection no longer necessary. There were no reporters, business deals, or giant diamonds. Only family, friends, and people who had earned the right to witness her happiness. 5 years later, Adrian saw Natalie in a park while he was visiting Seattle. She was walking beside Ethan. Their young daughter sat on Ethan's shoulders, while a little boy held Natalie's hand. Adrian stopped at a distance. Natalie noticed him. For a moment, their eyes met. She gave him a gentle nod. Not an invitation, not a promise, only peace. Adrian nodded back and walked away. That evening, Natalie stood on the porch of her home while Ethan helped the children plant flowers with Eleanor. She touched the simple wedding ring on her finger. She had once believed love meant giving until nothing remained. Now she understood that real love did not erase a woman's identity, silence her voice, or make her beg to be valued. It gave her room to grow. It protected her dignity. And it stayed honest, even when the truth was difficult. Natalie looked at the family waiting for her and finally felt no fear of losing everything. Because after losing the wrong life, she had received the one she truly deserved. The woman who once vanished without a word had returned with her name, her freedom, her family, and a love that never asked her to disappear again. And so, our story has come to an end. My wonderful friends, are you still here with us? Because if you have stayed until this very moment, then perhaps something in Natalie's journey has touched your heart in a personal way. Maybe you have also given too much, stayed too long, or forgotten your own worth while trying to keep someone else happy. Now, let us look at this story through a Stoic point of view. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that we may not control what others do, but we can control the way we respond. Epictetus taught that freedom begins when we stop giving other people power over our peace. And Seneca believed that hardship does not always destroy us. Sometimes, it reveals the strength we never knew we had. Natalie could not change the betrayal, the lies, or the pain she suffered. But she could choose dignity. She could choose healing. And most importantly, she could choose a life where love no longer required her to disappear. Remember this: losing the wrong people is not always a punishment. Sometimes, it is the beginning of your freedom. Do you believe Natalie made the right choice? Share your thoughts in the comments. Please like this video, share it with someone who may need this message, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories of justice, healing, and new beginnings.